Hi, I'm John Lancie, and I'm at ComicsOnline.
John, thank you so much for sharing your time with me.
You're
We're
welcome.
excited to be celebrating everything Star Trek this weekend in Chicago with Creation Entertainment.
Right.
I would love to hear just what was the casting process like for Q?
You mean how did I get the role?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I slept with Gene Roddenberry.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
No other questions, that's it.
No, there we go. No, I auditioned just like everybody else.
Was
Yeah.
it an extensive casting process?
No. I auditioned once, and that was it.
You've been invited back to participate with so many different casts over the years in
Right.
different iterations of Q.
Right.
What does it mean to be able to continue to play in the world of Star Trek?
Well, it's sort of become cumulative. I didn't assign any particular significance to it in the beginning because it was a job, and if they wanted me back, then I guess it meant, well, not I guess, I knew it meant that I had done well in the last job, in the last time. But it's really been mostly through the fans that I've begun to understand that it had more significance than just, job to job to job.
Well, seeing you return for Star Trek Picard was an absolute joy, and getting to do more of a long-form story with Q is something we hadn't really seen before. It was always the episodic or just the two-parters. But how did it feel getting to play for an entire season and contribute from that perspective?
It was great. I mean, it was. I was flattered that I had been asked. I take these things seriously. I know how much the fans take this show and our roles seriously. So it was good. I mean, and what's nice is that you get the material and then you prepare, and then you come in and see whether you can hit the target. Yeah.
I'd love to take a step back to talk about your career. What drew you into the world of entertainment and acting?
Well, I think I kind of ass-backed my way into it. I was a kid who had problems at school. And my problem was I really didn't learn how to read properly. So by the time I got to be 14 years old, I had just a long trail of failures at school. And a teacher that year, in the springtime, said, we're going to be doing Shakespeare's Henry V, and Delancey, you're going to play Hal. And I had no idea what that entailed or anything, but so I had to read the show, which was very difficult for me to do. And then I had to learn it, which was really difficult. And I performed it outside, at the end of the year with the parents that were there, that come to see their kids. And lo and behold, I was good at it. And there was a man who had come to see his granddaughter, and his name was Matthew Black. And he was the editor of the Pelican Shakespeare's. And he took my father aside and he said, if your son is interested, you should encourage him because he has a flair for this. So it was the first time that anyone had said anything nice to me about school, ever, on any level. And so I sort of grabbed onto it kind of like a life preserver. I don't know if I was particularly well suited or not. It was sort of uphill from then on in terms of trying to get better and learning what I had to do and stuff like that. But that's what got me involved.
What is it about the world of Trek that you think keeps resonating with the fans, or what has kept Trek alive for so long?
I mean, that's one of those questions that if they could bottle it, the answer, they would. There's so many elements attached to it. You've heard, the hope for a better future, the idea of inclusion, the idea that you're accepted, the idea that, and then in the real world, these are the story ideas that I just mentioned. But in the real world, to be part of a group, and I think Gene created a tent, a small tent, with Star Trek that came just at the right time, because it was a lot of people who, you know, and I include myself in that. I'm a little young. It was more in the area of Leonard Nimoy's group, who was, you know, a good 15 years older than I was at the time. But, you know, the group that was not really interested in sports, and the group that began to find science fiction to be so interesting, and, you know, kind of the nerds, and he created a tent, and people began to get underneath the tent, and as time went on, that tent grew larger and larger, because there were so many people underneath it who were finding respite from the glare of what everybody else was doing. And that's what I see now. I mean, I see people coming up to me and saying, a grandfather comes up to me and says, you know, here's my son and here's my grandson, and we're all Star Trek fans, and, you know, grandma and her daughter and the granddaughter, and it just gave people an opportunity, a multi-generational show that gave families an opportunity to bond. I mean, these are just extraordinary. It's just extraordinary. Most shows don't do that at all.
Well, the Next Generation absolutely was the case for myself and my father. I remember watching The Death of Tasha Yar. That was the first episode for me.
Right.
And that from that point on, I was hooked.
Right.
But I will say that Q's appearances were always my favorites, because you never knew what to expect.
Right.
And
sure.
You really did such a wonderful job with Star Trek Picard, and even the final scene with Jack Crusher. Hopefully someday we get to see Star Trek Legacy and get to continue what you left with that.
Well, we
genuine
shall
nugget.
see. We shall see.